Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Always happy to be here with you where sports meets that thing called life. The Wildcat Sports Pub, like I said, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. They are open 7 days a week. And of course, they are open for you to watch all of these NFL games as well as college football, college basketball, lacrosse, soccer, all of your, like I said, all of these wonderful NFL games. You also have the opportunity to connect with them through the World Series and everything else going on. Come out to the Wildcat. Like I said before, great for dates, great for getting friends together, great to have a drink responsibly, great to go out to dinner, have kids' birthday parties, anniversaries, reunions, get-togethers of all different kinds. You can have your team banquet there at the Wildcat Sports Pub. And of course, we go live from the Wildcat with the West Genesee Wildcats every single month throughout the year. And of course, we do Syracuse football, Syracuse basketball, and a bunch of other specials on site on location. Did a Major League Baseball talk around the diamond special with Mark Lukashevitz and Frank DiPino, who both live here in upstate New York and have both played as pitchers inside of the major leagues. So very happy to be able to do everything we do at the Wildcat. You can go to them on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. You can also get in touch with them for takeout and delivery by calling 315-487-2222. That's 315-487-2222. So make sure you do that. And we are happy to be inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour for NFL Week 9, 2022-23. If you have a question pertaining to fantasy football, send it over my way, and I would be more than happy to help you all out to get us set and on our way. Love bringing fantasy football to you every single Wednesday between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. Eastern time. So always looking forward to it. Always love doing it, and can't thank you enough for being a part of it and making us your fantasy football home. So for anybody that has a question on YouTube, Facebook, and MixLR, it's all .com/wakeupcalldt. So mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, and youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. You can connect with us here where sports meets that thing called life, and we are happy to answer all of your questions. So definitely check that out so you can connect with us. And like I said, happy to answer all the questions that come through here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. So send your questions over. Make sure you do it while we are doing this broadcast. I don't want to miss a single question. So send them over, show some love, have some fun, and let's get fantasy. So let's jump into it. Philadelphia is going to play at Houston. We go in order here as well. So for those of you watching it live and those of you that listen back and watch back to the show, know that we will be going in order. So when I put the list of teams up next to me, that is a very easy way of finding out, hey, where's Dan at in the show? Because you'll be able to see exactly where I am at. So you see right here on my right-hand side, you see my left, your right. So you see this here, the entire schedule from top to bottom. This is how we do the games. So if you're looking at the top, Thursday night, Philadelphia at Houston, then we'll go Chargers at Atlanta, all the way down to Baltimore at New Orleans. So if you're listening into the show and you're scrambling and you're trying to figure out, hey, where is Dan in the show? I need advice on this game. Well, you can just look at the schedule itself, listen to who I'm talking about, and say, oh, okay, this is where he's at. So this is where I need to be in order to listen to the advice that I want on my game that's coming up in my team. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer your questions for you here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. So always looking forward to bringing that to you. And like I said, love giving you fantasy football advice every single week. And we give fantasy football advice all throughout the year. So folks, for those of you that don't know the show and you're coming here for the first time, welcome. Very happy to have you here. And just to let you know, I mean, we are all about giving you fantasy football advice all year long. Fantasy never sleeps on Wake Up Call. And so we're providing fantasy football advice to you all throughout the year. And that's because I genuinely love it. I love it like you do. So, any way that we can help you be ready for your fantasy football season and be ready throughout the year and give you something to do, right? When there's no football going on, you're like, Dan, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to get on with this? Well, we give you something all year long, talking about the NFL all throughout the year. And that, to me, is a beautiful thing that we get to share with you. So we appreciate everyone that comes and listens and watches. So let's get into it. Philadelphia at Houston. We're going to start there on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora this morning. Jalen Hurts. I mean, look, this is the only undefeated team in the nation. 7-0. Those birds are flying high here and inside of the NFL. So definitely Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, got to play them both in this game. Kenneth Gainwell only got one carry. Trey Sermon is there now. I got to go with Miles Sanders, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Hurts, as well as Dallas Goedert. So I like them all in this matchup. It's kind of cut and paste, but the team's been playing well, and fantasy's been doing well, so you definitely have to make sure that you check them out. So get on to that and make sure that you pay attention to it. So Philadelphia, bunch of talent. On the other side for Houston, not as much. Dameon Pierce is really the guy. Brandon Cooks is injured right now with a wrist injury. Nico Collins has a groin injury. God bless to both of them and hope they get well and stay well. So really, Dameon Pierce is the guy that I would look at for Houston. That's an easy fantasy football outing for me to tell you, here's the one guy you play. And for Philadelphia, there's many. To get into our Sunday portion here in the Sunday 1 o'clock games, we're going to start off with the Chargers first and foremost. And we'll go with the Chargers game up against the Atlanta Falcons. I always do the road team first, so we'll head off to the Chargers. Justin Herbert, definitely worth the play. QB1 and Austin Eckler, RB1. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are both hurt. Keenan's got a hamstring injury. That thing was nagging him and bothering him I should say a bunch of seasons ago. I drafted Keenan Allen. I was like, oh, okay, this guy's supposed to be good. I didn't expect a lot out of him, so let me draft him this time around. And when I drafted him, it bit me in the tush because Keenan Allen was hurt with a hamstring for most of that season. And he's hurt with a hamstring for this season as well, which is very unfortunate because the hamstring injury is a nagging injury and not the type of injury that you want to have to... I mean, you don't want to sustain any of these injuries, but definitely, looking at this hamstring injury for Keenan Allen, it's been sticking around for weeks here, which is not a good sign for the wide receiver one from the Chargers. Mike Williams, he's a good guy to come in, right, and do his thing, but he's hurt too. And we know that he's going to be out this week with an ankle injury. So that leaves DeAndre Carter and Michael Bandy and Jason Moore because Josh Palmer is also hurt. So where do you go? Well, that's a very, very, very tough question. So that puts most of the emphasis on Austin Eckler, but that also knows that the defense is going to put most of their emphasis on Austin Eckler. But it does open up Gerald Everett, Donald Parham Jr., he's hurt as well. So speak about insult to injury 5 billion times over for this poor team. They have a bunch of their receiving core that is going to be hurt in this game. So look to Justin Herbert, look to Austin Eckler, and maybe look to a Gerald Everett in this matchup just because of the situation that they find themselves in here. And, it's a tough situation for this team for sure by all stretches of the imagination because of all the injuries that they've had to endure. So there is some fantasy value, but it might be hard to get the ball out in the yard for Justin Herbert. He's good at doing it, but he's got a lot of injuries to deal with. That leaves a lot of the emphasis for me on Tyler Algier, Drake London, as well as Kyle Pitts, all players that you should play for the Falcons. Now, the Olamide Zaccheaus situation is affected for sure based on the fact that we're in a situation that, Olamide Zaccheaus, as I told you last week, if Drake London and Kyle Pitts aren't out there, then he's worth putting out there. But when they are out there, then it's kind of a dicey situation. And we saw that, right? Because now he only had one catch, I think, this past week with the fact that he had to share the field with Drake London and Kyle Pitts. So just make sure that you're monitoring that and paying close attention to it because Olamide Zaccheaus is not a bad guy to grab and stash, but not somebody you're going to play every single week because of the situation of Drake London and Kyle Pitts being able to be out there. Tyler Algier worth the play as well in this matchup. If you have questions, shoot them over. Happy to help you. by any way that we can. Make sure you send out your questions to us, and we will be sure to answer those questions in the order that they come in. So the next game that we have up here to talk about, Miami at Chicago, Chi-Town. So Chi-Town did a good thing on Monday night. Can you believe it? Can you believe it that Chicago shows up and gets a victory like that over the Patriots, man? Wow. So I look back on that Monday Night Football. That was what, October 24th that we got to see that. So crazy. And then this past Monday night, we got to see Cincinnati go up against Cleveland, and Cleveland just dominated that game. They were shutting them out 18-0, and then Cincinnati was able to get on the board. All I needed from Cincinnati was for Joe Burrow to gain, I don't know, another 10 yards. I needed him. If he completed a pass to Joe Mixon, then I would have either tied or won. I lost by one single point in one of my fantasy leagues. I lost 189 to 188 because the Cincinnati Bengals could not stop the Cleveland Browns rushing attack. If they had stopped them and gotten the ball back within that 3 minutes, and Joe Burrow or Joe Mixon ran some type of play, I would have won the game. All I needed was for them to get the ball one time in the last 3 minutes, and they couldn't do it because that's how horrible Cincinnati's defense is. So ridiculousness on that side of things that Joe Burrow just needed to get the ball back, and they couldn't because Cleveland ran the clock out, and Cincinnati's defense is just garbajosa. And they haven't had a great defense, hence why they did not, win that Super Bowl when they played up against the Rams. You don't look to Cincinnati for defense, and that's a reality for me in fantasy, and it felt very close to home. Miami at Chicago, speaking on this game, though, Tua Tagovailoa, you got to play him in this matchup. I said, arguably they would be undefeated right now, if Tua had stayed healthy. And look at and am I wrong? He's come back, and they keep winning. So Tua Tagovailoa worth the start for you. Jeff Wilson Jr. has found his way over to the Dolphins in some moves that were happening before the trade deadline. So here we go, Jeff Wilson Jr. Raheem Mostert lighting a fire under his tush, and looking at the tush in 2 days in a row that I use the moniker tush tush. So I'm gonna use it again because I can and because it's my show. My boss ain't gonna stop me because I'm my boss, and above me is God. And I think God's okay with tush tush. I hope that he is. So with that being said, getting into this matchup here, you look at the backfield, and you don't bring Jeff Wilson Jr. in for no reason. So Raheem Mostert, little fire lit under your butt, under your tush tush, brother, and we'll see how it goes for this. I think this is kind of a toss-up, Jeff Wilson and Mostert. These are deep sleepers for you. This is like a fourth running back. This is a lower end flex out for you just because of the situation, and obviously bringing somebody in means that they're not sold on what they got. So just watch that, monitor that. Not bad guys to have, like I said, if you're going to put 4 running backs out there, but not your 1 and not your 2, not right now. Outside of that, we look at Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. You got to play them both. And then Mike Gesicki, we'll take a look at Mike Gesicki, and to me, I think you got to put him out there, right? When he's healthy, he's a good go-to for the team, so I think you got to put Gesicki out there as well. On the other side of it for Chicago, Justin Fields is a QB, low-end 1, high-end 2 QB for me. I don't want you to have to trust him to be your quarterback, for, your QB1 on your fantasy team. But if you have the super flex, you can put a quarterback in there, well, throw out Justin Fields, right? If you already have a quarterback in space on your team there taking up a roster spot, then maybe you could put Justin Fields out as a super flex. Or if you got somebody off this week, there's a bunch of teams that are going to be off this week. Cleveland, Dallas, Denver, the Giants, Pittsburgh, and San Francisco. So if you have Jimmy G or Kenny Pickett or Jacoby Brissett or Dak Prescott or Russell Wilson or Daniel Jones, then maybe this is the week you put Justin Fields out there, right? I don't feel great about it because they're playing Miami, and Miami's been playing really, really good football with Tua out there. So, for me, I would say probably stay away from it. But he's not bad because he can run and he can get in the end zone on his feet and through the air. So Justin Fields is not a horrible fantasy player, but he's not the fantasy quarterback that I want you to have to rely on week in and week out. David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, this is where the value really is for me. Chase Claypool is now over on to the Chicago Bears coming from Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh Steelers didn't really utilize him that much over the last couple seasons, and now he's in Chicago. So we'll see what he could do in Chicago. So, I mean, Darnell Mooney. Mooney, and to me, is a low end 2, high end 3 at wide receiver. I like Montgomery and Khalil Herbert because they're going to run the ball. Khalil's had some good numbers despite the fact that he's not the dominant number 1 guy. And David Montgomery, when healthy, put him out there. Again, I would say these are not RB1s for you by any stretch of the imagination. I would say Montgomery is a lower end RB2, Khalil is an RB3, and maybe a low end 2, high end 3. But Chicago, for me, there is fantasy value, but they are playing Miami, and I'm not completely sold on Chicago at all this season. I do like the running game more than anything else, though. Carolina at Cincinnati. We talk about this horrible Cincinnati defense. Going up against a Carolina team, and it's funny how sometimes it's like, oh, okay, they don't have their coach anymore. What are they going to do? And sometimes teams play better, right? Look at Carolina. They're 2-6 overall, but 2-1 in the NFC South, and that's where it matters, right? If you win in your division, you give yourself a spot in the playoffs, no matter what your overall record is. Remember a couple seasons ago, the NFC East, it was who's going to make the playoffs with 4 to 6 wins, and that's reality. And not only make the playoffs, but get a home game, because if you win your division, you make the playoffs, and you get a game at home. Crazy. Carolina, PJ Walker, man, my dude's been doing it and doing some good things here, doing it and doing it and doing it well. And PJ Walker, he represents Temple. So good stuff. It's from the Temple Owls. I covered him when he was there. I like PJ Walker. And I like the work that PJ has put in taking over here. He had some time last season due to injury and got some time again. And you look at this, they lost to the Falcons on the road 37-34, but dang it. They almost shut out the Buccaneers, and here they are against the Falcons, putting up 34 points, giving them everything they can. 317 yards. He was only 19-36. 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Deontay Foreman, he stepped up. 26 carries, 118 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Dude is balling. He's probably already off your waiver wire, and definitely you wouldn't see him in free agency unless a lot of people been sleeping. But you can maybe make a trade for him. I know we talked about Deontay Foreman last week here on the show, and I said it's kind of up in the air who you put out there. But Deontay Foreman amongst everybody is the guy you put out over Chuba Hubbard, who's been hurt, and Raheem Blackshear, who played multiple positions when I covered him at Louisville. So I think for Carolina in this game against Cincinnati, PJ Walker's not a bad bet. He's a QB2, but if you got guys off this week, guys injured, PJ Walker, not a bad one to put up against Cincinnati, especially when he put up almost 40 against another defense I don't trust, which is Atlanta. So look into that. DJ Moore, I put him out there as well. Deontay Foreman, you got to put him out there. Terrace Marshall, he's a flex guy. DJ Moore is not a wide receiver 1 anymore. I got him as a lower end 2, mid-range to low end 2. He gets 1,000 yards at the end of the season. I say that every week, but he doesn't get it pretty. And what I mean by that is consistently, you're kind of banging your head against the wall like, why did I draft this guy in fantasy? Yet at the end of the year, his numbers look good. On the other side of it, speaking of good-looking numbers, Joe Burrow, got to play him. Joe Mixon, got to play him as well. Jamar Chase is out, which T. Higgins has more value. Tyler Boyd has value at flex. And, I would probably, Hayden Hurst had a few catches, PPR. I got him as a tight end too for this week. Green Bay at Detroit. How about this game? This game smells like Thanksgiving, right? But we're playing it here in week 9 instead, a few weeks before Turkey Day. And I don't know. I did that. I did that a few episodes ago, and I felt like I did it right. So here we are doing it again. Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, you got to play them both. A.J. Dillon, you got to play him as well. Romeo Doubs, he's been doing some good things out there. So I would like to see you put him out there in this matchup. Detroit is not known to do a lot of good things this season. Their record's not great. Neither is Green Bay. Green Bay's 3-5, and Detroit is 1-6. So Detroit's trying to get that number 1 pick, I guess. But I do like Romeo Doubs on this team. Christian Watson, God be with him, man. This This guy's been through enough. Concussion protocol, questionable for this week. Just came back recently and then back out at the beginning of this past game. So Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, Aaron Rodgers, Romeo Doubs, I put them all out there. For Detroit, DeAndre Swift, you got to play him when he's healthy, so get him out there. Still not 100%, but is worth the play. I'm on Ross St. Brown. I like him as a wide receiver 3 for you. If you got 3 or 4 receivers going out there, not a bad guy to put out and give him an opportunity on your team. Next one that we have up here, Indianapolis at New England. So we're going to jump into this matchup between the Colts and the Patriots. So Colts game that we have here for you, and if you have a question, shoot it on through to us. We're happy to help you. If you have a question after the show is live, you can still reply to the video on facebook.com/wakeupcalldt. Just search the video and click reply and shoot me a message. You can also reply to this YouTube video on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, and I'll be happy to help you here as well. And if you have a question on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, our worldwide internet streaming radio, you can send it off to us. I'll be happy to answer it as well. For the Colts, Jonathan Taylor, worth the play. Michael Pittman. You go back and you look at this game, right? Sam has the job. Ellinger has gotten the start for the Colts now. So we take a look at how he did this past week. The Colts are 3-4-1. They lost 17-16 at home against the Commanders. And looking at the person that was commanding the offense, Sam Ellinger, 201 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, 17-23, not too shabby, with a new quarterback in space here. Jonathan Taylor, 16 for 76, 4.8 yards per carry, no touchdowns. Alec Pierce has been doing well, my guy to come from Cincinnati that I covered with the Bearcats. He led the way. Every quarterback has their guy. Remember that? I always tell you. Why is Alec Pierce getting the catches, Dan? Well, because every quarterback has their guy. But don't be afraid if you have Michael Pittman. He caught 7 of the 9 thrown his way. Pierce caught 3 of the 5 thrown his way. So Pittman still looks to be the dominant target. 7 for 53. And Pierce was 3 for 65. So Pierce got a few more yards on less catches. But in this game, as they're playing up against Patriots, I do like Pittman, Michael Pittman Jr., low-end 1 in this week. And for Alec Pierce, I got him as a flex guy out there. Never been sold on Paris Campbell. I do like Jonathan Taylor, obviously, in the backfield. On the other side for the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris, they've been splitting some time here. So the question is, what does that look like? Well, let's look at this past week and what it looked like against the Jets in a road win that I didn't have the Patriots getting. 22-17 here. So crazy here. Taking a look at Ramondre Stevenson, 16 carries, 71 yards. Damian Harris, 11 carries for 37 yards. Ramondre Stevenson led the team in reception yards, receiving 7 catches on 8 targets. Man's balling out. So I like Ramondre Stevenson as a running back 2 for you. I like Damian Harris as a running back 3. Jacoby Myers, not a bad PPR guy as well, as I've told you before. 12 targets, 9 catches against the Jets on the road in the win. So Jacoby Myers is worth the play as well. And I got a message coming in here from Greg saying, Dan, DT is driving home the point he is really dislikes Jamal Williams. I don't dislike Jamal Williams. I've just never been sold on Jamal Williams. And when DeAndre Swift is healthy, how do you not play DeAndre Swift, right? But in this game against the Dolphins, a 31-27 loss at home by Detroit, Jamal Williams had 2 touchdowns, 53 yards, 10 carries, 5.3 yards a carry, and Jamal Williams caught 3 balls for 23 yards. So let me go back to this and let me reassess. Yes, you should play Jamal Williams in this game. My thing is when DeAndre Swift is out there, that's the hard part for me. But DeAndre Swift was so ugly in this game, right? 5 carries, 6 yards, 1.2 yards a carry. He's the guy that has the name, but is he the guy that you play? That's the question that really comes up, right? He's the guy that you feel like you have to play, speaking of DeAndre Swift. But Jamal Williams, I'm sorry, Greg. I didn't mean to, the reality of it all is Jamal Williams is worth your play as a low-end. I got him as a running back 2, low-end 2, high-end 3, and it's only low-end 2, high-end 3. It would be 2 definitely, but it's a low-end 2, high-end 3 because of Swift. Because Swift is the number 1 on the depth chart. He's the guy that you anticipate, right? And they only ran the ball 19 times. So I know I never mentioned him, Greg. I understand that. You want to know why I never mentioned him? I'm an honest person. I'm always honest. It's because I typically don't believe that Jamal Williams is going to be the dominant guy in the backfield. He wasn't the dominant guy in the backfield for Green Bay behind Aaron Jones, and he's not supposed to be the dominant guy here. Now, he only carried the ball 10 times, but yes, Jamal Williams has more fantasy value than DeAndre Swift. Greg, you pointed something out last year. You were 100% right. You pointed something out this year. Last year, you pointed out Najee Harris. This year, you're pointing this out, and you're 100% right. I should have mentioned Jamal Williams. I'm in the habit of not mentioning Jamal Williams when DeAndre Swift is healthy. However, DeAndre Swift did not have a good week. He has not had a good season, and Jamal Williams is the low-end 2, high-end 3, only because of DeAndre still being out there. But if DeAndre keeps doing what he's doing, Jamal Williams is going to be the dominant back, as he should be, and I believe you should play Jamal Williams above DeAndre Swift if you had to choose between the two right now, just because of the fact that I am not a fan of DeAndre Swift at the moment. I'm not. I know he's supposed to be the guy, but his numbers suck. 5 carries for 6 yards? Ew. And Jamal Williams, listen, he did what he needed to do. Only 10 carries, but still, 2 touchdowns, caught a bunch of passes, and at the end of the day, he gives you what? Almost 80 yards total, so yeah, he's worth the play. So put him out there. Thank you, Greg, for catching me on that. Force a habit to not mention Jamal Williams just because of the fact of the health of DeAndre Swift. But thank you for saying that, because you're 100% right. And yeah, Swift isn't 100% healthy. Cut and paste that from every year. God willing, he will be soon, because I feel terrible for the guy. If he doesn't stay healthy this season, I don't know how Detroit keeps him. I really don't. You go out there and you get a draft pick on him, and it's just not working. It's not working. And, to call him the dominant back on the team over and over and over again when he's not producing, that's an issue. So definitely Jamal Williams is worth the play this week, and I apologize for skipping over that. I can admit when I'm wrong. You know how, you date someone, my dad said sorry to my mom twice, I think, in the first 18 years of my life. I apologize all the time when I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. So I'm not smelling the roses. I'm smelling Witty Wicks here this morning. It's so good for my allergies. My allergies are terrible. If your allergies are bad, folks, I can tell you one thing, okay? Go to an allergy doctor, take your asthma test, take all the tests, the skin test and the underneath your skin stuff, and make sure you check everything to see what you're allergic to. Once you know what's going on with your body, assess the situation, get on an antibiotic if you need one for sinuses and whatnot. Help your body out, get better, get well, do what you need to do to get healthy, because I am a walking, living example of, allergies just really getting at you. And I speak for a living, and I feel it in my throat this morning, so make sure that you take care of your body, folks. Buffalo at the Jets. Let's get this one going. Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, Devin Singletary, both worth the play. Ruh-roh. Nyheim Hines is in Buffalo now. Say word, son, say word. So Nyheim Hines, it wasn't working out with the Colts. Jonathan Taylor's the dominant back, and you almost never heard me say Nyheim Hines this past year, and probably most of last season as well. And why was that? Because he wasn't getting a lot of play, right? Wasn't getting a lot of opportunities. Now he's on a team that's trying to make it to the biggest game in the NFL. And they're trying to do it with all of this talent. Ooh, baby girl. Josh Allen, Devin Singletary, talk dirty to me. Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. Who'd I tell you to play last year and this year? Dawson Knox. And now Nyheim Hines is there. You might want to flex him out. Definitely might want to pick him up in free agency, because he a bill now, girl. The Jets. Speaking of trades and different things going on, let's go back and look at this Jets game, because they took away James Robinson from my very, very, very ill-advised Jacksonville Jaguars, who made a stupid decision of getting rid of James Robinson. Well, in his first game, he did play. The first game he was available for, 5 carries, 17 yards, 3.4 yards carry. Michael Carter, only 2 more carries than James Robinson, the newbie Jet, and Michael Carter 7 for 26, 3.7 yards a carry. Looks like they're going to use them both. And what did I tell you about Garrett Wilson? He's going to be the number 1 guy with the Jets. He had 6 catches, 115 yards, targeted 7 times in the loss to the Patriots. So you got to play Garrett Wilson. And Michael Carter, James Robinson, they're playing Buffalo. So I'm going to have these guys as both running back 4s for you this week, but look for them to continue to split the carries. Michael's got a question coming in here. Thanks for the question, Michael. Standard League, would you trade Kamara, Diggs, and Amari Cooper for Kupp, Kelsey, and Swift? No. Because Kupp is having a down year. Kelsey's good, and DeAndre Swift we just talked about, and all of his issues that are going on. So, Michael, I can't remember if you joined. If you haven't, make sure while you're here talking with us on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, like anybody else watching and listening, make sure that you go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. So, Michael, make sure you subscribe while you're here if you haven't yet. So, I would not make this trade. If you're the one that's keeping Kamara, Diggs, and Amari Cooper, I would not make that trade. I know Kamara, whatever, but I wouldn't make that trade. Amari Cooper's done some good things this year, too, better than I thought he was, better than it looked like it started in Cleveland, I should say. So, Michael, make sure you join. Everybody else, if you have not, make sure you go to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt and click subscribe there today. So, thanks for the question, Michael. I would not make that trade. So, next up here, so yeah, I did the Buffalo and the Jets. We went through the whole Jets. So Garrett Wilson, yep, gave you all that. So now we'll head on to our next matchup for our 1 o'clocks. We have Minnesota at Washington. Still weird for me to call them the Commanders. Very strange. Better than calling them the football team. Everybody knows for 2 years I was friggin' twitching in the studio having to call them that. I was so annoyed, but because everybody's a football team in the NFL, so it's ridiculous. Minnesota, let's look at Minnesota by the numbers recently here in their last matchup that the Lake Minnetonka team had. The Minnesota Vikings got a win over the Cardinals, who are just having a really poop year. They're 3-5 right now. Minnesota 6-1. 34-26, they win the game over the Arizona Cardinals. Kirk Cousins, 2 tutties. No interceptions, 24-36. Delvin Cook, girl, say word. He had a touchdown on the ground. Madison had a touchdown on the ground. Kirk Cousins had a touchdown on the ground. Going up against the Cardinals defense, it's like Oprah. You get a touchdown, you get a touchdown, and you get a touchdown as well. Justin Jefferson, 98 yards, almost hit 100. So close. 6 catches on 8 targets, 98 yards. Stealing it as well. 6 catches on 7 thrown his way, 67 yards. Wow, Minnesota's starting to look like that offense I've been talking about. Kirk Cousins going up against Washington. Yeah, well, there's a lot of guys that are off this week due to a bye. So Kirk Cousins, not a bad QB1 for you this week. I do like him as a mid-range QB1. And actually, I just like him as QB1. Delvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, if he can play. He's questionable with a knee injury. God willing, he can go out there. Alexander Madison, not bad to put out there as a flex for you, especially if you got a bunch of running backs off this week. And TJ Hockenson is staying in the NFC North, but he has left the Detroit Lions, and he is off to Minnesota. And this is a very stupid move by Detroit. But Detroit is known for making stupid moves in recent history. So, TJ Hockenson, they finally got a guy in Minnesota. I wasn't sold on Irv Smith. I don't think he's a bad tight end, but not a consistent tight end in fantasy. So, look for Hockenson to maybe get a touchdown this week, going up against Washington on the road. Washington, Brian Robinson Jr. and Antonio Gibson. Are these guys going to share it all the way through? Well, as of right now, we take a look at this past game, a win over the Colts on the road, 17-16, as I mentioned earlier. We look at Brian Robinson, 8 carries, 20 yards. Antonio Gibson, 7 carries, 19 yards. Both of those are gross. 2.5 yards a carry for Robinson, 2.7 for Gibson. But what did I tell you? It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Terry McLaurin puts that work in. Unlike DJ Moore, he's a consistent guy to get to 1,000 yards. So he's got 113 this last week, 8 targets, 6 catches, 113 yards. Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson, 7 catches and a touchdown from the backfield, 58 yards, second on the team behind Terry McLaurin. So that's why you put him out there. I like Antonio Gibson in this game, and I like Brian Robinson Jr. as a flex out for you as a running back 3 or 4. Next game we have up before we take a step aside, the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville, folks, I am a Jacksonville fan through and through, but I am an impartial broadcaster, so I'm going to tell you flat out, this team has not played up to what I had hoped, and Well, I said 7-10 this year, but the way they've been playing, they're not going to get there. They got 2 wins right now. So do the Vegas Raiders. Jacksonville's 2-6. The Raiders are 2-5 because they had a bye week. Derek Carr in this game, well, I mean, the Jacksonville defense I would normally lean on, but meh. They're kind of meh right now. Derek Carr, not a bad play for this. If we take a look at Derek Carr this season and what he's done up to this point, listen, he's got a ton of weapons this season, so I expected more out of him. Playing up against the Saints 24-0, you get shut out. Ew. I think he had 17 points in fantasy in the leagues that we have. 15-26, 101 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, and then Jarrett Stidham came in, the former backup quarterback for the Patriots. He came in. He was 8-13 for 72 yards. What a friggin' gross situation. Jacksonville could get a win in this game. I like Josh Jacobs. Amir Abdullah, he's been all over the place. He's there. Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow. Devontae, not a bad guy to put out there. Hunter Renfrow, he's a deep flex for me right now. He's a good PPR guy, but he's like a wide receiver 4 at the moment. Darren Waller's still hurt with a hamstring injury. God willing, he'll be okay. But like I told you, those nag in fantasy and in reality, and especially with running backs and wide receivers. So Devontae Adams, I do like him in this matchup. And really in the NFL in general, hamstring is a horrible injury because it's not like you broke anything, but it's like it may stay with you the rest of your career, rest of the season. So just watch that. Devontae Adams worth the play. Hunter Renfrow worth the flex. Josh Jacobs is worth the play. On the other side of it, Travis Etienne Jr. is definitely worth the play. Christian Kirk is worth the play as well. They picked up Kelvin Ridley, but he's suspended right now. So Zay Jones good for PPR. Evan Engram, tight end 2 for you right now. And in this game against the Raiders, Trevor Lawrence might be a really good play for you at QB1. I've been playing him at QB1 this season, and it's gotten me over 30 points, so I'm not going to complain at all about this. Bob, we got a question. PPR, full PPR. Should I trade I'm guessing that's Deontay Foreman and Juju for DJ Moore and James Robinson? Well, sir, Bob, I like the question. And Bob, while you're here, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel here on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. So make sure you click subscribe. I do appreciate the question. Should I trade Foreman and Juju for DJ Moore and James Robinson? I like Deontay Foreman, and I like the situation right now for him in the backfield with Christian McCaffrey gone, which I never thought they would do. Arguably the best player probably the best player on Carolina. Not anymore, now for San Francisco. And it says something when he goes to another team and automatically is successful. Not only successful, he threw a touchdown, caught a touchdown, and ran a touchdown in. That's some college football trickery numbers, so that's pretty crazy, but that's what he's been doing. So, Deontay Foreman, I do like this past week. It's about consistency for me. Kansas City got the win, and look at Juju's numbers. 7 catches, 124 yards, and a touchdown against San Francisco on the road. Not an easy thing to do, but in the game log for Juju, let's take a look. So he's had back-to-back 100-yard games against really good teams, against Buffalo and San Francisco. Buffalo, really, really good. San Francisco, definitely better than I thought. He had an 89-yard game, a 79-yard game. So you want to do this for DJ Moore and James Robinson? I'd say no. I would say keep what you have. Because, listen, we're looking at a situation where James Robinson, we don't know what he's going to look like. Deontay Foreman's been getting the play, and Juju's had his 2 best games of the season the last 2 weeks, and he's been close to having 4 games where he's had 100 yards. So I would stick with what you got for now. I wasn't sold on Juju coming into this season, but it's not like he hasn't performed, so I would stick with it. And I gave you my Vegas up against Jacksonville. So we're going to take a step aside for a fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. When we come back inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios where sports meets life, for the Fantasy Football Power Hour. Not one of, not a, but the Fantasy Football Power Hour. I'll be bringing you more from NFL Week 9 2022-23 season in the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub. We have our 4 o'clock games, Sunday night and Monday Night Football, coming up right after this. Send in your questions, youtube.com, facebook.com, and mixlr.com, all /wakeupcall.dt.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios where sports meets that thing called life. This is the Fantasy Football Power Hour. Not one of, not a, but the Fantasy Football Power Hour where you should be every single week for your fantasy football advice. Last week we had to do it on Sunday because I was traveling on Wednesday, so I appreciate your patience on that. But weekly we are here on Wednesdays, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time, so make sure you check us out here every week. In and out of the NFL season, we continue to do fantasy football throughout the year, so make sure you check us out for that. NFL Week 9 2022-23 season, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. It is time for us to get into our 4 o'clock games. There's only 2 of them this week. Schwa has a question for me. Which side would win? Amon-Ra, Dameon Pierce for D-Hop? Which side wins on that? Well, you know, if you look at it, and you look at DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins just came back, so he doesn't have a lot of, material, but he has some. So we look at DeAndre Hopkins, and D-Hop, 12 catches this past game against Minnesota in a loss. 13 targets, 12 catches, 159 yards, and a touchdown. Rondale Moore still got involved, too, even with all that going on for DeAndre. Got a touchdown in this game against Minnesota. We've seen D-Hop in a couple games here, and he had 103 yards and 159 yards. So the man has definitely gotten himself involved. The question is, who wins in this? Dameon Pierce and Amon-Ra St. Brown for D-Hop. Well, what are you giving up? Which side of this are you on, Schwa? And if you haven't joined, make sure you join our YouTube channel. For everybody that comes in and asks a question, Definitely would appreciate you subscribing on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. So, which side would you be on in this trade? I got to know that. So, and I mean, I want to know what side you'd be on in the trade, but I definitely, so D-Hop's numbers are good. It's 2 weeks, right? But he's come in ready to go after the 6-game suspension. So he comes in for week 7, week 8. Now here we are in week 9, and he's done a lot of good things. You look at Amon-Ra, St. Brown, it always makes me think of Kamun-Ra. So from Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian, the second one. So looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's got one game where he has 100 yards. That was his second week of the season. He had 2 touchdowns. He hasn't had a touchdown since the second week of the season. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, he scored in the first week. He scored in the second week. He hasn't scored in his last 4 games that he's played in. And he hasn't gotten involved as much either. So that's not great. And then Dameon Pierce is on a team where he's the only fantasy player worth noting, in my opinion, which I share every week. We look at Dameon Pierce and what he's done. Listen, I think he's the running back potentially of the future for them. He's had 100-yard game in the 6 games that he's played in, the 7 games that he's played in. He has scored 3 times. Those were in a row. That was week 3, 4, and 5. And so he scored those weeks, hasn't scored the last 2 games they played, and didn't score in the first 2. He did have 92 yards, 99 yards, 131 yards. So I do like Dameon Pierce's value, but you have to be careful, Schwa. You got to be careful to not make the mistake that Houston made before, when Houston traded a wide receiver for a running back. Because Dameon Pierce would be good, but not good enough to give up D-Hop. So he says, I have D-Hop currently, but I'm 3-5. I have Delvin, Fournette, Godwin, Pittman, Schultz, and D-Hop. I would keep what you got, man. Someone offered me that for D-Hop, but Amon-Ra with Hawk now gone worries me. Yeah, and it should. So, Schwa, I'd stay, and definitely appreciate you coming in here today, and hopefully shooting a subscribe to us here on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. I would keep D-Hop, Think about it like this. Most of you that have D-Hop, you drafted him. You spent a draft pick on a guy that you knew was going to be out for 6 weeks. So the least you can do is give him a few weeks' time when he's been holding up a roster spot on your team for 6 weeks now. So I would keep D-Hop, Schwa, and I appreciate the question. And I like the question, and I agree with you. Amon-Ra, I'm kind of like this about Amon-Ra. He's doing better than I thought he would do, but I'm kind of And with TJ Hawkinson gone, that's an issue. And definitely appreciate the question. So you're welcome, Schwa. Definitely thank you for coming in. Hope you do every Wednesday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, if not longer. We typically go over 11 o'clock here on Facebook.com, YouTube.com, and MixLR.com. They're all worldwide and all /WakeUpCallDT. Subscribe, like, connect, follow, and be with us here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So thank you for the question, Swad. Next game up that we have is going to be the first 4 o'clock game. Speaking of Arizona, let's get into Arizona. Seattle at Arizona. So let's get into that right now. The Seattle Seahawks going up against the Arizona Cardinals. Geno Smith, baby girl, he has been putting in that work, okay? And so it's not the talent. It's not always like, okay, well, somebody's like, well, what do I see? No, look at how hard this man is working. Seattle is 5-3. 5-3. They're doing better than the Rams, reigning Super Bowl champions. They're doing, look at what they're, Geno Smith. Get it, girlfriend. Broncos. Then they lost again at the Niners, lost home against Falcons, then beat the Lions. The Broncos was at home, Lions on the road. Lost to the Saints on the road, 39-32 in a shootout. Just beat the Cardinals, and then beat the Chargers on the road, and then beat the Giants, handing the Giants their second loss of the season. Only their second loss. Beat the Giants at home in Seattle. So let's look at Geno Smith, shall we? Geno Smith in this last game. 23-34, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Kenneth Walker, I told you he'd eventually be the guy. No, Rashad Penny got hurt. I thought eventually Kenneth Walker would take over. It's happening a little bit sooner now. And I was concerned about DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett's output losing Russell Wilson. And Geno Smith has been putting it together. He got a touchdown to each of those gentlemen in the last game. Geno Smith, man, wow, has he played himself a season so far. Geno Smith, 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Started off the season, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, then 0-1 against San Francisco, then 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 touchdowns, none, 3 touchdowns, none, then no touchdowns, no interceptions against Arizona in a low-scoring 19-9 win. 2 touchdowns, 1 against the Chargers on the road, 2 touchdowns, no picks against the Giants. And he already has over 1,900 yards. We'll get over 2,000 yards in the upcoming game here. He only needs, to get to 2,000, he needs 76 yards passing. That's all he needs to get to 2,000 this season. Completion percentage, 72.7%. This man is making me eat my words because I said that he would be a good, after Syracuse played them in the Pinstripe Bowl, I said he'll make a great wide receiver in the NFL. Well, he made me eat my words last year, and I loved it. And he's making me eat my words this year even more so, and I love it again. So Geno Smith, not a bad pickup, especially with a bunch of teams on bye this week, to play in this game because Arizona's not that good, and Geno Smith is. I like Geno as a QB1 this week. Kenneth Walker III, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, play them all. On the other side of it, Kyler Murray, I got him as a lower-end 1, high-end 2 at quarterback. Worth the play, but right now about him. James Conner, questionable with a rib injury. Hopefully he can come back. Eno Benjamin, taking a look at his play in this most recent history here. He had Benjamin in the last game, the loss to the Vikings on the road. He had 9 carries for 22 yards, 2.4 yards a carry. Kyler Murray led the way. Rondale Moore had a couple carries. I mean, I'm not really sold on Benjamin. He had 4 catches for 23 yards. I mean, maybe like a running back 3 or 4, a deep flex. I look at, you got to play D-Hop, you got to play Rondale Moore, and I would play Zach Ertz. But I have him this week as kind of he does get involved in the red zone. So I'll keep him as a tight end 1 this week. I'll keep him as a tight end 1. He's playing Seattle, but I'll keep him as a tight end 1. Seattle's playing on the road, though. The Rams at the Bucks. Some people thought, wow, this could be the game that decides the Super Bowl, right? And here we are looking at a Rams team that's 3-4 and a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that is more gross. They're 3-5. So Darrell Henderson, I mean, listen, this guy covered at Memphis, one of the many Memphis running backs in the NFL, one of the many guys that had that Mike Norvell time and whatnot, and big fan of Mike Norvell and his recruitment. So looking at Darrell Henderson this year so far, he has, by the numbers, 197 yards rushing. I'm not joking. That's in 7 games played. He's played in 7 games. He has 197 yards, 2 touchdowns rushing. So 197 yards. Some guys pick it up in 1 game. That's like a Derrick Henry game. 7 games here. You got 47, 47, 17, 27, none against Dallas, obviously. He did have 4 catches in that game, and then 43 and 16. So not great numbers for Darrell Henderson. He's a low-end flex for me, probably a 3. Cooper Kupp right now is questionable with an ankle injury. He hasn't been the same, so watch him on that. Allen Robinson and Van Jefferson gain value if he's not able to go. Those are guys to look at flexing out. Maybe Robinson as a low-end 2, high-end 3. Van Jefferson definitely as a flex. Tyler Higbee, worth potentially putting out there for you as well. Got a bunch of questions coming in. Shaka said, should I trade away Gabe Davis and Hollywood for Jamar Chase? No. And Jamar Chase is hurt right now, so that's no. So I would say no. Keep who you have. And then, let's see, Chef said, drop Kyron Williams for Jeff Wilson, Kenyon Drake. You're going to pick up both? Or you're going to pick up one of them? So, Chef, let me know. Are you picking up both? Because I would drop Kyron Williams for sure. Yes. So, are you picking up both is the question that I have here. Make sure you let me know. Because then we can say, or if you're asking me to choose between one or the other, then that's a different question. Tampa Bay has been playing like garbage. And hot garbage, which makes sense because they're in the South, right? But there's a lot of things in Florida that I love. Right now, I don't love the way that Tampa's been playing football. Tom Brady, 26 of 44 in the loss to the Ravens, 27-22 at home. They're at home for this game too. 1 touchdown, no interceptions in that game. Leonard Fournette got a touchdown, not a lot of yards, 9 carries, 24 yards, 2.7 yards a carry. Mike Evans looked like himself, 123 yards, 11 targets, 6 catches. Godwin also had 11 targets, 6 catches. That's why you got to play both these guys, 75 yards. Fournette had 3 catches for 34 yards, so he amounted 58 yards overall and a touchdown. Rachaad White still getting involved, 3 catches on 3 targets. So in this game, I like Fournette. I like Mike Evans and Godwin. Brady's probably a quarterback too for me in this one. And that's what I would say about that. And let's see here. Or Kenyon Drake. Okay, so do you pick up Jeff Wilson or Kenyon Drake? That's your question that you're asking me. Well, let's look at Baltimore. First and foremost, Baltimore is playing on Monday Night Football, so not a bad thing to have in your little wheelhouse there. Kenyon Drake, he's got 1 touchdown rushing this season, 1 touchdown receiving. He got the receiving touchdown in that game against Tampa that I was just talking about. His numbers, 30 rushing, 31, 8, 26, 119, 5, and 62. Not great. Jeff Wilson, you know what? Between the two of them, if I'm looking at this right now, because Raheem Mostert, I think he may be ousted by Jeff Wilson Jr., and I think Jeff Wilson Jr. has some upside here. And then on Baltimore's side, Gus Edwards got a hamstring injury. God willing, he'll be okay to go. Justice Hall might get some work in. Mike Davis, wow, he's fallen here after filling in for Christian McCaffrey, doing a nice job in Carolina, not working it out in Atlanta, and then coming over to Baltimore. So he's bounced around to 3 teams in the last couple of seasons. I like probably the Jeff Wilson Jr. pickup more. So, Chef, I would say Jeff Wilson. At this time, I would say pick up Jeff Wilson. And to those of you that are tuning in here, if you haven't joined, make sure you subscribe while you're here to our YouTube channel, to Chef and to Shaka and everybody else. Make sure you subscribe while you're here. Thanks to everybody that has on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. You could also find us on Facebook at wakeupcalldt, Twitter at calldt, and Instagram at wakeupcall_dt. You can respond and write direct messages to us if you have questions about your teams and whatnot, or just in general. And of course, you can find us on wakeupcalldt.com, our main website where everything is located, our articles, our videos, and our broadcasts, our podcast stories. So make sure you check us out there. And Jeff said, can you send a picture of the team? I don't know if you could send a picture of the team, Chef. Not Jeff, pardon me, Chef. So just type it over. Because I don't know if on the feed you can you can send a picture of your team. So just type over a picture of your team, or type over your team, and I'll take a look at it for sure. Happy to do it, man. So Rams and Tampa gave you that. Sunday Night Football, Tennessee at Kansas City. Wow. Well, Tennessee's making their rounds with the teams that are trying to make it to the Super Bowl, Kansas City and Buffalo. And Tennessee not too shabby off after starting the season with a couple bumps there in the road. Tennessee, for me, in this game, Derrick Henry, definitely worth the play. Malik Willis, not a ton to write home about. I don't know how it's going to look in this game either. I like Dontrell Hilliard as a flex guy. And because as a backup, listen, you don't bring in a guy like that with numbers like that if you don't expect him to play eventually. He could be the future, but he also could be the now, because you really don't want to piss him off and have him leave. So I like Derrick Henry, and I like Dontrell Hilliard in this game. That's really it for Tennessee. On the other side of it, I like Pat Mahomes. And then you look at Isaiah Pacheco and look at what he's done. I mean, technically on the depth chart, he's the number 1 guy right now. So, Kansas City still doesn't know who their running back is. That has been the case for a while. And in their win, 44-23 on the road at San Francisco, we saw Pacheco with 8 carries, 43 yards, no touchdowns. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 6 carries, 32 yards, a touchdown. Mecole Hardman, the wide receiver, 2 carries for 2 touchdowns and 28 yards, 14 yards a carry. And Clyde didn't get involved in the pass game. Neither did Pacheco. So that's something to see here. So definitely check that out. So I definitely appreciate that, and should definitely get yourself. Looking at Pacheco and looking at what Pacheco's done, and Chef, I just got your team here, so I'll take a look at it in a second here. But I mean, again, it's hard because Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still getting involved, right, and still getting into the end zone. So for Kansas City, I would say Clyde Edwards-Helaire is probably a running back 3. I'd have Pacheco also as a running back 3, a little bit behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire, though. So I have them both in like a flex position. I like Juju in this game, and I like Travis Kelce, and obviously I said Pat Mahomes. Monday Night Football, we'll get into in a second. I got to check out Chef's team. Half PPR, 10-man, okay? You got Jalen Hurts, good. Chris Godwin, like it. Jamar Chase, okay, when he's healthy. Stevenson, definitely showing up in the passing game and in the rushing game. Joe Mixon, like it. Damian Pierce, good stuff. Dallas Goedert, Tyler Boyd, good to have as a flex out. Christian Kirk, like it. Chris Olave, Devontae Smith, like it all. Cordero Patterson, obviously, I think Tyler Algier is going to take over. Kyron Williams, you're getting rid of. Khalil Herbert, nice guy. Pacheco, not bad. Tucker, my favorite kicker in the NFL. Eagles defense, okay. I had Javonte and Brees during the season. It's been terrible laughing my butt off, but my record's 5-3. Dude, you got a good team, so, hold fast, hold steady. Drop Kyron, pick up Jeff Wilson Jr., and let's see what you could do with that. But I like your team, man. I really do. Good stuff. Really good stuff. How many flexes do you have? Like, what's your lineup like? Because our lineup in our league is 1 team quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flexes, which are quarterback, wide receiver, or tight end, a kicker, and a defense. So we have 10. Let me know because you said 10 man. So let me know how many flexes do you have in that? Is it a similar kind of makeup? Let's go to Baltimore, New Orleans for Monday Night Football. If you have a question, send it in, and if you're watching after the show has already aired, you can reply to this video on Facebook.com/WakeUpCallDT, and you can reply to the video on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT. And I'll be happy to answer your questions. Just make sure you send them in a timely fashion so I can get to them. You can also send questions in direct messages over to me on Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, Twitter at CallDT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. So make sure you do that as well. Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, yes. Kenyon Drake, I got him as a running back 3. Rashad Bateman, freaking A, man is hurt. He's out this week with a foot injury. Could come back week 11. Mark Andrews is questionable. If he's able to play, put him out there. If not, Isaiah Likely had a nice game. So I put Likely out there if Mark Andrews is unable to go. And I might put him out there. Well, yeah, no, I put him out there if Mark Andrews is unable to go. I like Lamar Jackson and Kenyon Drake. On New Orleans side, I like Taysom Hill. Definitely. Especially if he's not written as a quarterback on your fantasy. Like I tell you all every week, on ESPN, he's down as a tight end. So you don't have to put him in your quarterback spot, which is perfect because he's the definition of a flex. So I like Taysom Hill. I like Kamara. Juwan Johnson, he's up and down. He has really good games, but it's kind of like, Chris Olave is worth the play for you. Michael Thomas, questionable with a foot injury. I mean, cut and paste. But yeah, hopefully he'll be okay. I like Kamara. I like Olave. I like Taysom Hill in this game. So fantasy value on both sides. I think it's going to be a good game. Could be a really high-scoring game. Hopefully it is. We need to have a good Monday night game. Some of these have been poopers. So hoping for some good things here. With that being said, I want to thank you for tuning into the Fantasy Football Power Hour every Wednesday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, outside of travel, which last week we had to do it on Sunday, but we are here on Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., if not longer, inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly brought to you by the Wildcat Sports Pub. This has been NFL Week 9 for 2022-23. If you have questions, shoot them over to me, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. And for this week, we do it on Wednesdays, so you get Thursday night, all the Sunday night, and Monday night set. Questions throughout the week. It also gives you ample time to get in touch with me and have an open dialogue. So make sure you do that here on Facebook.com, YouTube.com, and MixLR.com, all /WakeUpCallDT on Facebook.com /LiveNowDT and on WakeUpCallDT.com. You can find us on social media once again and get to me directly. You can send a direct message to Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, Twitter at CallDT, Instagram at wakeupcall_DT. Once the shows go into our archives, you can hop in and find us worldwide on any one of your listening platforms. Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes and Apple Podcasts, MixLR, Player FM, Podbean, Podvine, TuneIn, Spotify, Stitcher, and to listen and watch on YouTube. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. And a big thanks to all of our incredible partners, Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub. Witty Wicks has shifted into Christmas time. You don't want to miss it. Their Winter Wonderland is now on display for you on 190 Township Boulevard in Camillus, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, Avicoli's, Canine Camp, Dog Daycare, Chick-fil-A Cicerone, Chick-fil-A Clay, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Chick-fil-A Watertown, Honda City of Liverpool, Pizza Man, Mother's Cupboard, and Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It is Fins Up every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. Make sure you're checking us out with the Lemoyne Dolphins every Wednesday at 9 a.m. during Dolphin Time, first and third Wednesday, AD and DT, with Athletics Director Bob Beretta, like today, and myself, Dan Tortora, and with our exclusive content of reclassification and realignment and so much more. And on every second and fourth Wednesday, Dolphin Dive, as well as specials throughout the month, like we had the bonus with Tom bonus of the Lemoyne men's soccer team that you can listen to as they get set for their game tonight inside of the NE10 postseason, with a hopeful opportunity at the NCAAs if they keep winning here. So you can check out that conversation with Tom Bonus on all the outlets I just gave you. And our coaches, administration, student athletes, future Dolphins, and alumni come to you in Dolphin Dive every second and fourth Wednesday of each month at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Get all of our content with the Dolphins by going to Lemoyne's tab on wakeupcalldt.com. Subscribe to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. And for more information on the Dolphins, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com, including tonight, to watch the game for the Lemoyne men's soccer team in the NE10 tournament. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are here with you, where sports meets life, as exclusive multimedia marketing partners of Wake Up Call as well. Make sure you tune in to our content with the Bobcats, including this Friday, as we have exclusive content with reigning national champion head coaches Nick Dimitrievski of the men's soccer team, Alex Grigorita of the women's soccer team, following their selection show where they've both been seeded 2 in the nation for the upcoming national tournament for the USCAA. So you will have a one-on-one with Nick Dimitrievski and a one-on-one with Alex Grigorita this Friday. Get all of our content with the Bryan and Stratton Bobcats by going to the BSC Syracuse tab on wakeupcalldt.com, subscribing to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, and of course, being on our social media for all the content we have coming up. The Bobcat Buzz happens every single month. We've done it at Mother's Cupboard on 3709 James Street in Syracuse, PB&J's Lunchbox on 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York, on campus on James Street at Bryan and Stratton College of Syracuse in Syracuse, New York. And, of course, we are constantly bringing you the student athletes, coaches, and administration all throughout the year. Thanks to the Bobcats. Go Bobcats for their men's and women's opportunity at winning another national championship. And a big-time shout-out to the men's basketball and women's basketball teams starting off their seasons this week, including the men's basketball team, Clay Gagan-Sherman, who had his first ever game as the head coach of the men's basketball team yesterday. So a big shout-out to him for that. Find out more information on the Bobcats by going to syracuse.bscbobcats.com. I want to thank you for tuning in to today's edition of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Thanks to Bob Beretta for AD and DT and Lemoyne College. Thank you to the Wildcat Sports Pub for our Fantasy Football Power Hour. Thank you to Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory for refilling those incredible tins. Half-price refills for the rest of your life. And you can get any one of your NFL teams, put on that tin, and have that tin sent to you. You got to come in, though, to get your half-price refills, but you definitely can go to Ma and Pa's popcorn.com and you can order today any one of their kettle corns and popcorns and have your NFL tin sent to you. So make sure you do that, Ma and Pa's popcorn.com. Big shout out to Cafe Kubal for being our exclusive studio partner. 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse, inside of their double-decker cafe on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse, New York, at their drive-through location. So, big shout-out to Cafe Kubal. Many thanks to Witty Wicks as I am burning the final last little bit here of my Namaste at Home. This is one of the candles that Witty Wicks makes that clears up my allergies in such a big way, and I need it more than ever right now. So, a big thanks to Witty Wicks for being here in our studios. Their Q's Home Sweet Home pillow, the 315 pillow, the 315 Home Sweet Home signs. You can get Camillus signs, Baldwinsville, Watertown, Syracuse, all the good stuff. And, of course, you can actually go there now and get something really, really neat, really awesome. You can get earrings for CNS, for Liverpool, for West Jenny, for Beeville, and so on and so forth. So, some really incredible stuff happening at Witty Wicks, and the Winter Wonderland is on display as well. So get out to Witty Wicks, 190 Township Boulevard in Camillus today. And Ryan's got a question coming in here. Redraft full PPR. Would I trade Najee, Devontae, and Lenny for Pierce, Amon-Ra, and Debo? No, not right now. I would not. So I would say no, Ryan. And Ryan, if you haven't joined, make sure you subscribe. So I would keep what you have. So I would keep it. And make sure you subscribe while you're here. And happy to answer your question here. Thanks for getting it in right before we went off the air. As always, folks, have a great day. Be good to each other. Be good to yourself. God